Let's carry on with the Enlightenment, page 16, chapter 4 of the Prince. Niccolo Machiavelli. Why the kingdom of Darius, which Alexander seized, did not rebel from his successors after Alexander's death. The difficulties that are involved in holding a state newly acquired having been considered, one might marvel at how it happened that Alexander the Great became Lord of Asia in a few years, and then just after he had seized it, died, from which it appeared reasonable that all that state would rebel. Nonetheless, the successors of Alexander maintained it, and had no other difficulty in holding it than that which arose among themselves out of their own ambition. I reply that principalities of which memory remains have been governed in two diverse modes, either by one prince and all others servants who as ministers help govern the kingdom by his favor and appointment, or by a prince and by barons who hold that rank not by favor of the Lord, but by antiquity of bloodline. Such barons have their own states and subjects who recognize them as lords and hold them in natural affection. States that are governed by one prince and his servants hold their prince in greater authority, because in all his province there is no one recognized as superior but himself. And if they obey someone else, they do so as a minister and official, and do not bear him any particular love. In our times, the examples of these two diverse kinds of government are the Turk and the King of France. The whole monarchy of the Turk is governed by one lord, the others are his servants. Dividing his kingdom into sanjaks, he sends different administrators to them, and he changes and varies them as he likes. But the King of France is placed in the midst of an ancient multitude of lords, acknowledged in that state by their subjects and loved by them. They have their privileges, and the king cannot take them away without danger to himself. Thus, whoever considers the one and the other of these states will find difficulty in acquiring the state of the Turk, but should it be conquered, great ease in holding it. So inversely, you will find in some respects more ease in seizing the state of France, but great difficulty in holding it. The causes of the difficulties in being able to seize the kingdom of the Turk are that one cannot be called in by the princes in that kingdom, and that one cannot hope to facilitate the enterprise through the rebellion of those around him. This arises from the reasons given above, for since all are slaves and bound by obligation, they can be corrupted with much difficulty, and even if they are corrupted, one can hope but for little use from it, as they cannot bring their peoples with them for the reasons indicated. Hence, whoever attacks the Turk must necessarily assume that he will find him entirely united, and he had better put his hope more in his own forces than in the disorders of others. But once the Turk has been overcome and defeated in the field in such a way that he cannot rally his armies, one has only to fear the bloodline of the prince. If this is eliminated, there remains no one whom one would have to fear, since others do not have credit with the people. And just as the victor could put no hope in them before his victory, so he should not fear them after it. That's how Jehu, Jehu wiped out Joram. He wiped out Joram, Ahab, Jezebel, and the temple of Baal. The contrary occurs with kingdoms governed like France, because you can easily enter there, having won over to yourself some baron of the kingdom. For malcontents and those who desire to innovate are always to be found. For the reasons given, they can open the way for you into that state and facilitate victory for you. Then your wish to maintain that victory for yourself brings in its wake infinite difficulties, both from those who have helped you and from those you have oppressed. Nor is it enough for you to eliminate the bloodline of the prince, because lords remain there who put themselves at the head of new changes. And since you can neither content them nor eliminate them, you lose that state whenever their opportunity comes. Now, if you consider what was the nature of Darius's government, you will find it similar to the kingdom of the Turk. Therefore, for Alexander it was necessary first to make an all-out attack on him and drive him from the field. After this victory, with Darius dead, that state remains secure. For Alexander, for the reasons discussed above, and if his successors had united, they could have enjoyed it at leisure, nor did any tumults occur in that kingdom besides those they themselves incited. But it is impossible to possess states ordered like France with such quiet. Hence arose the frequent rebellions in France, Spain, and Greece against the Romans because of the numerous principalities that existed in those states. As long as their memory lasted, the Romans were always uncertain of their possession, but when their memory was eliminated with the power and the long duration of the empire, the Romans became secure possessors of them. And the Romans possessed them even though when they later fought among themselves, each took for himself a part of those provinces in accordance with the authority he had got within it. And the provinces, because of the bloodline of their former lords, was eliminated and acknowledged no one but the Romans. Having considered all these things, therefore, no one will marvel at the ease with which Alexander held the state of Asia, and at the difficulties others such as Pyrrhus and many more like him had in keeping their acquisitions. This has come not from much or little virtue in the victor, but from the disparity in the subject. Page 20, chapter 5, how cities or principalities which lived by their own laws before they were occupied should be administered. When those states that are acquired, as has been said, are accustomed to living by their own laws and in liberty, there are three modes for those who want to hold them. First, ruin them. Second, go there to live personally. Third, let them live by their own laws, taking tribute from them and creating within them an oligarchical state which keeps them friendly to you. For since such a state has been created by that prince, it knows it cannot stand without friendship and power, and it has to do everything to maintain him. And a city used to live in free may be held more easily by means of its own citizens than in any other mode if one wants to preserve it. As examples, there are the Spartans and the Romans. The Spartans held Athens and Thebes by creating oligarchical states there, yet they lost them again. The Romans, in order to hold Capula, Carthage, and Numantia, destroyed them and did not lose them. They wanted to hold Greece much as the Spartans had held it by making it free and leaving it its own laws, but they did not succeed, so they were compelled to destroy many cities in that province so as to hold it. For in truth there is no secure mode to possess them other than to ruin them, and whoever becomes patron of a city accustomed to living free and does not destroy it should expect to be destroyed by it. For it always has as a refuge in rebellion the name of liberty and its own ancient orders, which are never forgotten, either through length of time or because of benefits received. Whatever one does or provides for, unless the inhabitants are broken up or dispersed, they will not forget that name and those orders, and will immediately recur to them upon any accident, as did Pisa, after having been kept in servitude 100 years by the Florentines. But when cities or provinces are used to living under a prince, and his bloodline is eliminated, since on the one hand they are used to obeying, and on the other they do not have the old prince, they will not agree to make one from among themselves, and they do not know how to live free. So they are slower to take up arms, and a prince can gain them with greater ease and can secure himself against them. But in republics there is greater life, greater hatred, more desire for revenge. The memory of their ancient liberty does not and cannot let them rest, so that the most secure path is to eliminate them or live in them. Chapter 6, 21, of the new principalities that are acquired through one's own arms and virtue. No one should marvel if, in speaking as I will do of principalities, that they are altogether new, both in prince and in state. I bring up the greatest examples, for since men almost always walk on paths beaten by others and proceed in their actions by imitation, unable either to stay on the paths of others altogether or to attain the virtue of those whom you imitate, a prudent man should always enter upon the paths beaten by great men, and imitate those who have been most excellent, so that if his own virtue does not reach that far, it is at least in the odor of it. He should do as prudent archers do when the place they plan to hit appears too distant, and knowing how far the strength of their bow carries, they set their aim much higher than the place intended, not to reach such height with their arrow, but to be able with the aid of so high an aim to achieve their plan. I say then that in altogether new principalities, where there is a new prince, one encounters more or less difficulty in maintaining them according to whether the one who acquires them is more or less virtuous. And because the result of becoming prince from private individual presupposes either virtue or fortune, it appears that one or the other of these two things relieves in part many difficulties. Nonetheless, he who has relied less on fortune has maintained himself more. To have the prince compelled to come to live there in person because he has no other states makes it still easier. But to come to those who have become princes by their own virtue and not by fortune, I say that the most excellent are Moses, Cyrus, Romulus, Theseus, and the like. And although one should not reason about Moses as he was a mere executor of things that had been ordered for him by God, nonetheless he should be admired if only for that grace which made him deserving of speaking with God. But let us consider Cyrus and the others who have acquired or founded kingdoms. You will find them all admirable, and if their particular actions and orders are considered, they will appear no different from those of Moses, who had so great a teacher. And as one examines their actions and lives, one does not see that they had anything else from fortune than the opportunity which gave them the matter, enabling them to introduce any form they pleased. Without that opportunity, their virtue of spirit would have been eliminated, and without that virtue, the opportunity would have come in vain. It was necessary then for Moses to find the people of Israel in Egypt, enslaved and oppressed by the Egyptians, so that they would be disposed to follow him so as to get out of their servitude. It was fitting that Romulus not be received in Alba, that he should have been exposed at birth if he was to become king of Rome and founder of that fatherland. Cyrus needed to find the Persians malcontent with the empire of the Medes, and the Medes soft and effeminate because of a long peace. Theseus could not have demonstrated his virtue if he had not found the Athenians dispersed. Such opportunities therefore made these men happy, and their excellent virtue enabled the opportunity to be recognized. Hence their fatherlands were ennobled by it and became very happy. Those like these men who become princes by the paths of virtue acquire their principality with difficulty, but hold it with ease. And the difficulties they have in acquiring their principality arise in part from the new orders and modes that they are forced to introduce so as to found their state and their security, and it should be considered that nothing is more difficult to handle, more doubtful of success, nor more dangerous to manage than to put oneself at the head of introducing new orders. For the introducer has all those who benefit from the old orders as enemies, and he has lukewarm defenders and all those who might benefit from the new orders. This lukewarmness arises partly from fear of adversaries who have the laws on their side, and partly from the incredulity of men who do not truly believe in new things unless they come to have a firm experience of them. Consequently, whenever those who are enemies have opportunity to attack, they do so with partisan zeal, and the others defend lukewarmly, so that one is in peril along with them.